Bounce to Francis. Francis on the drive. He'll take it all the way. He scores!
Stephen Deshaun Francis, born February 21st, 1977. Welcome to the Beautiful Game series on Stunted Growth, where we talk about guys whose basketball game was just an amazing sight to see and deserve to be appreciated and documented. Not every player has a growth stunt or spurt story, but one that still should be told. Today, that guy is none other than the franchise himself, Steve Francis. One thing I love about sports is everyone that watches the same game or same sporting event will take it in and view it differently. That fact is so interesting to me. We can literally both watch Michael Jordan and LeBron James and each swear that the guy we like is the greatest of all time, all while another person may view someone totally different as the GOAT, and we can all come together to have objective and constructive conversations about it that can last forever about why we feel that way. Well, for me, Steve Francis was the most exciting point guard of his era, hands down. Michael Jordan, Allen Iverson, and Derrick Rose are my top favorite players of all time, but Francis was one you knew you couldn't keep your eyes off and could do something special at any time that made you excited for the replay of what you didn't catch the first time. The early 2000s was a golden era for point guards, probably the most exciting era as far as the position goes, along with the late 2000s and early 2010s. It was also a time N1 basketball peaked in the sport, bringing streetball basketball culture to the forefront, once competing with the NBA in viewership before its collapse. It created a time where you looked forward to any NBA player bringing his streetball moves to an organized game at the highest level, and Francis was that guy whose entire game was the perfect mix of N1 and NBA. The epitome of the old school term hot dogging, where a player would dance around his defender playing into the crowd before finishing the play, but you couldn't take your eyes off of him. The Steve Francis story is one of the most interesting basketball stories ever, filled with ups and downs, more downs toward the end than ups, which did stunt his growth, but you can't say his game was not beautiful. He was listed at 6'3", but we all know he maybe cracked 6 foot, 6'1", a benefit the listing gods bestow upon smaller guys that play above the rim and bigger than they actually are. I remember watching him growing up thinking he was going to be good forever and play his way right into the Hall of Fame. He was strong, athletic as ever, bouncing off the floor with his signature 2-foot dunks that made him look like he floated on air. He also had underrated handles and shifty as they come. So much so, he would fit an era like today perfectly. No, he never led a team to a championship and had a prime lasting just 6 seasons, but you have to admit, for these reasons, his game was definitely beautiful. Let's talk about it. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth. Let's get it, man. A natural hooper. The first thing that made Steve Francis's game beautiful and exciting to watch was he was so much different from a lot of point guards of his era. He played with a naturalness to his game, like he never planned a move beforehand, just created on the spot and took what the defense gave him. In this era, the three-point shot stands out as the go-to offensive attack, getting the most praise, but in Francis's days, it was all about the handle, the crossover, the hezzy, and Steve had a bag deeper than most at his position. He was straight from the playground and never lost that naturalness to his game, trying to be too by the book and refined. He had raw talent that was still good enough it made him one of the best point guards in the league since his rookie year. A year he won co-rookie of the year with Elton Brand in 2000. His team, the Houston Rockets, specifically the backcourt tandem of he and Cuttino Mobley, may not have won many games, but seeing them connect on backdoor alley-oops was a moment in basketball where, dare I say, winning didn't matter to fans. They were just there to enjoy the raw nature of Steve Francis. From 99 to 2004, the Rockets struggled to keep up out west, making the playoffs just one time in that span, Francis's last year in Houston, where they lost to the Lakers 4-1. He was an all-star 3 straight years beginning in 2002 before he was traded to the Orlando Magic for Tracy McGrady. He had one of his best seasons his first year in Orlando, averaging a career high in assists and scoring comparable to his all-star years. But the team was bad, and not too long he was traded again to the New York Knicks, where from there his career took an extreme nosedive. It was one of the quickest runs of elite level point guard play strictly from an entertainment standpoint. The moves he would attempt, the dunks like his fast break self alley-oop that he's been doing since his college days in game, was too fun not to pay attention whether his teams were winning or not. Anthony Edwards made a comment about players from the past not having the skill like players today, and while I don't agree with that, I would say there were much more natural hoopers back then who got better playing the game in off seasons instead of the amount of fundamental and skill training players do today. It's improved the game, no question, but seeing natural hoopers like Iverson or Steve Francis back in the day, you never knew what you were going to get on each play, and it made his game beautiful to watch. Unbelievable athleticism. Athleticism is one of the main selling points to having an attractive game, and Francis, as far as point guards, was one of the best ever. His 2-foot jumping was simply breathtaking, how he would gear up and take off from anywhere, over or around his opponent. It was arguably the best feature of his game, one that may have even saved him from being just one of the guys in that era. In his prime, athletically, he was fast, but more quick than anything, and the way he controlled that speed was just embarrassing for the defender. Insult to injury, when he got past you, he finished it off with above-the-rim activity that literally made him seem larger than he was. His 2000 slam dunk contest will always be a classic, placing second to Vince Carter's career-stamping moment as the best slam dunk contest dunker of all time. Under different circumstances, I believe Francis wins that contest and adds to his resume as one of the most athletic point guards of all time. The bounce he had was unbelievable. Sadly, with that much athletic gift, there's always the risk of injury, and for Steve, it's what took him levels down from where he was supposed to be had he been able to stay healthy for a longer time. I can't imagine the player Francis could have been mixing that athleticism with better outside shooting, a better turnover ratio, and healthy knees. What you see Derrick Rose, Westbrook, or Morant do from the position reminds me a lot of Steve Francis. The first time I think I heard the term playing above the rim was an announcer making that comment about the franchise. It's what allowed him to go from junior college to one of the toughest NCAA conferences and still be a star, good enough to leave after just 1 year. Athletically, he was unmatched and had a mindset he wasn't going to follow the traditional rules right or wrong. Mixed with his handle and raw attitude, his overall game was something special to watch, especially if you got to witness him in his prime, going around or jumping over the defender anytime he wanted to. His relentless way of attack. One of my favorite kind of players are the ones that constantly put pressure on the defense, keeping them on their heels all night to where by the end of it, you've made them confused and play right into your hands, where from there, the game is easy. Francis had the handle, athleticism, change of pace, and creativity to be a star in the league, but also it made his game beautiful to watch when he was right mentally and physically. He would often play with the defense, setting them up for one of his explosive drives to a slam dunk finish or beautiful layup in the paint. Steve Francis was that guy, especially early on. He did attempt to be more of a point guard later in Houston to please Coach Van Gundy, who wasn't seeing eye to eye with Francis, calling him selfish during the trade process. By 28 years old, he just wasn't the same athletically nor physically, and it hurt things like his speed and explosiveness. More importantly, opportunity left, and in a few years, he was out the league. But during his time, seeing his passion and natural joy for the sport was great for the game and his basketball legacy. All in all, words don't completely explain what Steve Francis meant to the generation that got to see him play while he was at an all-star level. He had his flaws, but overall, he was definitely a joy to watch. He was always rough around the edges and never quite smoothened out, but it gave him a naturalness to his game and an appeal fans really fell in love with. He returned to the Rockets to finish his career in the NBA at 30 years old, far from his prime, one that was beautiful to watch. Salute, much respect to Steve Francis. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth, and I'm out.
Do a spin move or throw it around your back. That's something I think that will always be in my game.